She never met the grandmother whose name she carries. She was not even born when Diana died in that Paris tunnel. And yet, look closely at Princess Charlotte's wrist at every royal event, and you will see the ghost of Diana sitting right there in pearls and diamonds. There's a quiet war being fought inside the House of Windsor. Not with words, not with shouting, but with jewelry, with names, with photographs, with the careful choices of a mother determined that a dead princess will never be forgotten. On one side stands a little girl being raised to carry Diana's flame. On the other stands a woman who was once Diana's greatest rival and who now sits on the throne as queen. This is the story of how Diana's memory refused to die, and why no crown, no title, and no passage of time has been able to erase it. On the morning of the 2nd of May, 2015, London turned pink. Fountains glowed, landmarks shone, and gun salutes echoed across the city to announce that a princess had been born. Charlotte arrived at 8:34 in the morning at St. Mary's Hospital in London, during the reign of her great-grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II. The world waited, as it always does, for the name, and when it came 2 days later, it told a story all on its own. Wikipedia. The baby was named Charlotte Elizabeth Diana, honoring her grandfather Charles, her great-grandmother the Queen, and her grandmother Diana. 3 names, 3 tributes, 3 generations of a family folded into one small girl. But it was the 3rd name that made people fall silent. Diana was a clear tribute to the child's grandmother, the late Princess of Wales, who died in 1997 following a high-speed car crash in Paris when Prince William was just 15 years old. Wikipedia Newsweek. Think about what that means. William was a boy of 15 when he lost his mother. He walked behind her coffin as the whole world watched, his face frozen, his grief on display to billions. And now, as a father himself, he had a daughter, and he had to decide how much of his mother to give her. Here is where the first careful choice was made. William did not name his daughter Diana as a first name. He chose to place it 3rd, tucked gently behind Charlotte and Elizabeth. Royal watchers believed this was deliberate and wise. One royal expert explained that William very sensibly decided not to give his daughter his mother's name as her first name, because everything she did and said would forever have been compared to Diana. By making Diana the middle name, the expert said, it means Diana is still there. Marie Claire, Marie Claire. That single sentence, Diana is still there, is the beating heart of this entire story, because Diana is still there. She is there in ways most people never even notice. Start with the jewelry, because in the royal family, jewelry is never just jewelry. It is memory made solid. It is love you can wear. Kate has been careful to keep her mother-in-law's memory alive, often wearing pieces of Diana's own jewelry. The most famous of them all sits on her own hand every single day. Even Kate's engagement ring once belonged to Diana, the sapphire and diamond ring William inherited and used to propose. In 2023, Kate revealed she never even needed to resize it, saying she happened to be exactly the same size and that she was honored to wear it. Parade +2. Imagine the weight of that. Every time William looks at his wife's hand, he sees the ring his father once slid onto his mother's finger. The ring that flashed in 1,000 photographs of a young, radiant Diana. It never left the family. It simply passed from one Princess of Wales to the next. And then there are the pearls. Kate wore Diana's iconic 3-strand pearl bracelet at Trooping the Color, a piece designed by jeweler Nigel Milne that Diana famously wore throughout 1989. Diana had worn it most memorably with her famous Elvis gown at a state banquet in Hong Kong. After Diana's death in 1997, William inherited the bracelet and later gifted it to Kate. Fox News +2. But the truly moving part is not that Kate wears these things. It is what she does next. Sitting across from her mother in the royal carriage, 11-year-old Charlotte appeared to wear a remarkably similar bracelet. Mother and daughter, side by side, both wearing pearls that trace straight back to a grandmother Charlotte never met. It is a message written in a language only the family fully understands. She is one of us and she carries Diana forward. Fox News. This is not an accident. It is a pattern repeated again and again. At one Trooping the Color, Charlotte wore a diamond horseshoe brooch gifted to her by her late great-grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, the same brooch she had worn to the Queen's own funeral. The brooch reflected Charlotte's well-documented love of horses, a passion she shared with the Queen. At Wimbledon, the tradition continued. Charlotte's charm bracelet subtly honored a long-standing royal tradition in which pieces carry deep personal meaning, connecting her once again to her mother and to Diana. International Business Times +2. Slowly, quietly, Charlotte is being built into a living monument. And one day, she will inherit far more than borrowed pieces for a single afternoon. As the daughter of the Princess of Wales, Charlotte is expected to one day inherit a selection of privately owned jewels connected to both her mother and Princess Diana. It has long been presumed that Charlotte will inherit Diana's very engagement ring, the 12-carat blue sapphire ring surrounded by 14 diamonds that broke royal protocol when Diana first chose it. International Business times the list. But if the story stopped at jewelry, it would only be about objects. What makes it unforgettable is the emotion underneath, and here, the family has shown a tenderness that catches the breath. In 2021, on Mother's Day, Kensington Palace shared something that made the whole world go quiet. The Wales children had written cards, not to Kate, to a grandmother in heaven. Prince George wrote on green paper, "Dear Granny Diana, Happy Mother's Day, I love you very much and think of you always." And then came Charlotte's. On a pink card with a colorful heart drawn on the front, Charlotte wrote, "Dear Granny Diana, I am thinking of you on Mother's Day. I love you very much. Papa is missing you. Lots of love, Charlotte. The son good to know." Read that line again. Papa is missing you. A little girl, too young to have any memory of the woman she is writing to, reaching across death itself to comfort her father. That is not a child who was simply told a name. That is a child raised inside a living grief, taught to hold a grandmother close, even though that grandmother exists only in photographs and stories. Kate has spoken about this loss directly in rare and careful words. Speaking of Diana, Kate said she thought Diana would have been brilliant as a grandmother to George, Charlotte, and Louis, adding simply, "We miss her every day." Coming from a woman famous for her composure, those 4 words carry an ocean. Parade. The tributes reach even into the smallest corners of family life. Diana started a birthday tradition with William and Harry, and Kate has carried it on with her own children. The Wales family once used a black and white photograph as their annual Christmas card, thought to be a gentle nod to Diana, who was fond of black and white images of herself. Even Kate's decision to accept her title was, in part, an act of remembrance. According to a former BBC royal correspondent, Kate thought long and hard before taking the title Princess of Wales, choosing to honor and remember the woman who wore it before her. Good to know +2. And that title is exactly where the shadow enters the story. Because to be the Princess of Wales is to stand in Diana's exact place. And to stand in Diana's place is to stand across from the one woman Diana could never forgive. Camilla. For decades, the name Camilla was spoken in the same breath as heartbreak. She was the woman at the center of the most famous marital breakdown of the 20th century, the third person, as Diana once so unforgettably described her own marriage that made it feel crowded. When Diana was alive, Camilla was the rival, the reason, the wound that never closed. And now, in one of history's great reversals, that same Camilla is not a footnote and not a scandal. She is Queen Camilla, seated among the senior royals at Trooping the Color beside King Charles. International Business Times. Sit with the strangeness of that for a moment. The little girl wearing Diana's pearls in the royal carriage is growing up in a family whose reigning queen is the very woman her grandmother saw as her greatest rival. Diana's legacy and Camilla's crown now live under the same roof, ride in the same processions, and appear together on the same balconies. This is the real tension, not a dramatic scene of a torn painting, but something quieter and far more powerful. It is the tension of memory versus reality. Diana is gone, yet everywhere. Camilla is present and crowned, and the family must somehow hold both truths at once in public with the whole world watching for a flicker of feeling. What is remarkable is how carefully they manage it. There is no open war on the balcony. At the 2025 Remembrance Sunday service at the Cenotaph, Kate appeared emotional, wiping away a tear while sharing quiet whispers and smiles with Queen Camilla. 2 princesses of Wales, one past, one present, and the woman who came between the story's beginning, all bound now into a single institution that must survive them all. Parade. That is what makes Charlotte's role so delicate and so important. She's not being raised to fight old battles. She's being raised to carry Diana's warmth without inheriting Diana's wars. Every pearl she wears, every card she writes, every gentle nod to Granny Diana is a way of keeping a flame alive, not as a weapon against anyone, but as a promise. A promise that the woman who was pushed to the edges of the family in life will remain at the center of it in memory. And Diana's presence is impossible to erase, no matter who wears the crown today. You cannot unname a princess. Charlotte Elizabeth Diana will carry that third name into every chapter of her life. into her school days, where she is known more simply as Charlotte Wales, and one day into whatever grand role history writes for her. To her friends, she has sweet, ordinary nicknames, Lottie, Poppet, Mignonette, proof that behind the jewels and the tributes there is still just a child growing up. Marie Claire. But she is a child with an inheritance far heavier than gemstones. She carries a mother's grief, a father's promise, and a nation's unfinished love for a woman who died too young. When William was a 15-year-old boy walking behind a coffin, he could not save his mother. What he could do, what he has spent his entire adult life doing, is make sure his children never lose her completely. That is why Diana still appears at Wimbledon in a bracelet on a young girl's wrist. That is why she still rides in the carriage at Trooping the Color in a string of pearls that once shone in Hong Kong. That is why she still receives Mother's Day cards from grandchildren she never held. She is there in the ring on Kate's finger. She is there in the black and white Christmas photograph. She is there in 4 small words spoken by a grieving daughter-in-law. We miss her every day. Camilla may be queen. Time may keep moving. New titles may be handed out and old ones passed down. But there is one thing no crown can undo and no throne can outrank: a mother's memory, kept alive on purpose by the people who loved her most. And as long as a little girl named Charlotte Elizabeth Diana keeps wearing those pearls, keeps writing those cards, and keeps carrying that third name into the future, the answer to the oldest question in this family is already written. Diana is still there. She always will be. And no one, not Camilla, not the years, not even death itself, has ever managed to take her away.